Hey, you're on Lockdown with CrimsonV on Castle Blakk Radio, where metal lives, and today we have Colin Cunningham. Hello, Colin.
Hello, good to see you. Since it's metal, I gotta put on a real dark voice and see what's going on. How you doing?
No, this is very neutral.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And you're calling from Copenhagen, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it sounds. I'm here for a death metal conference. We're gonna sacrifice a couple of goats, play B flat for the rest of the night. So it's gonna be pretty awesome.
Well, sounds like you're in the spirit.
I happen to be in Copenhagen right now.
Perfect.
And it's wonderful. I mean, it all sounds so exotic, but of course, it's sometimes your hotel's above of the falafel place in between the laundromat and the strip club, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is really romantic.
Right. So you were just involved in a pretty big movie. It was just released back in, I think it was November, and that movie was He Never Left.
Yes.
All right. And I think if, all of us people, no matter what music we listen to, we can always come together on thrillers and horror, which this seems to lean more on the thriller side. Type of movie.
When we started out, look, when the project was first pitched, when He Never Left was first pitched to me, I was like, I mean, awesome. First off, I mean, I love the genre, but it's also like, really? And it's like, well, no. This one's a little different. Because, we've all seen the movie, and if anything, that's one of the reasons why we watch them again, because we've seen the movie. We've seen the Halloween, the Friday the 13th, and they're great. They're awesome. What made this one a little bit different for me, anyway, was that it was kind of a blend of Friday the 13th meets Rear Window. It's got kind of a Hitchcock thriller aspect to it, and I fell in love with the idea. It's basically about a felon, a guy who's on the run. His name's Gabe Gaspari, and he's looking for a job. He's trying to go straight, but he ends up ripping off his last job and accidentally kills a young kid who was like a 17-year-old, his manager. Anyway, but he's on the lam, so he's hiding out. He's got to hide out in this motel for 2-3 nights, and he can't leave it. Don't show your face at the window. Don't go outside. Don't go for cigarettes. You can't go anywhere. He's got to wait for his ride to come and take him away. And while he's there, he hears what he assumes or thinks is a murder next door. And even though he's a bad guy, he's not a bad guy. And he hears what sounds like a woman that gets murdered next door, but of course he can't call the police. He can't run for help. He doesn't quite know what to do because it would compromise his position, and the motel that he's in has got a bit of a storied past. So instead of the typical kind of movie where the cheerleaders, their car breaks down, somebody runs out of gas, and they go up to the spooky motel or the spooky house. These people are, in many ways, they're kind of in their own hell, and they end up just knocking on the devil's door. So it's a little different, and I just fell in love with the idea. It was basically a guy trapped in a room, in a motel room for 3 days, and a lot of very scary, weird things are going on, and he doesn't know what to do about it. So in many ways, you're kind of trapped in there with him. So it makes it a little different from your typical, psycho clown fare,
Yeah, and I noticed that the window of opportunity to stay at this motel was very slim because it looked like it was closed throughout the whole movie. So the only time it must have been opened is when Gabe arrives.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we really wanted to give it kind of a what do you call it? I guess just a really isolated, out in the middle of nowhere kind of vibe. But the really fun thing for me, because so often you're blessed to work on different kinds of projects, and some of them have gigantic budgets, and some of them are very small. But if this was a big budget film, of course you'd show up to a sound stage, some stage somewhere out in Burbank or wherever they'd be shooting it, some airplane hangar, and they would have built the interiors of the motel, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas we literally were not only shooting in the motel, I was sleeping and living in the room that we were shooting in.
Oh, wow.
So the whole crew, and the rest of the cast stayed at the motel for six days. So we lived there and ate there and shot there. And so it was really, really cool to literally be shooting in the room that I was sleeping in for the week. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long did it take from start to finish?
Yeah, it was a bit of a miracle. I mean, look, at the end of the day, well, no, first off, I'll tell you, yeah, so it was basically 6 days of me at the motel, and then I believe there were 1 or 2 other secondary days where they shot in some of the other locations. But I just can't believe they pulled off what they pulled off. I mean, at the end of the day, whether the budget is $2 or $200 million, you know, the movie's either going to work for you, it's either going to be good or it isn't. I mean, how many times have we walked out of a movie that's won 10 Academy Awards and you're scratching your head thinking, what? I hated it. I thought it was crap. Well, there's my alarm going off again. Hang on 1 second, Christy. I got to turn this off because I didn't want to miss the interview.
Well, thank you.
Okay, it looks like I'm clear. Anyway, so I think we made a good one. And the fact that we made this film for the price of a used Toyota really is a miracle. So I'm proud of James Morris and Michael Bala and the guys who directed it and produced it, and of course all the other actors that showed up, Jessica Staples, and just everybody did such a wonderful job. And of course, we all did it for 2 corn dogs and a bottle cap. So to think that this film has gained the notoriety and the awards that it's won. I mean, it's been nominated for, on the festival circuit, I don't know, it was maybe 20 best pictures or 20 various this, that, and the other things. But I think we've won 5 or 6 best pictures. I won 7, I think, best actors. And it's just, I'm just happy. It's just a feather in their cap for James and Michael, and the fact that they were able to make a little Halloween slasher movie about a guy trapped in a motel room. And it doesn't suck. And that, you know, and because look, somebody's going to tell you that they love it and somebody's going to tell you they hate it. And odds are they're both lying, you know, because movies are such a relative thing. But for the most part, the reviews have been fantastic, and people have really, they're really digging it. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think with this movie, you go on a journey with each character. Like you've got obviously you've got Gabe. I think he's got the biggest part, like as far as the story. I noticed, like, yeah, you were in that room like throughout almost the whole movie. So you can tell that there's a sense of, like, you know, Gabe's cracking up a bit. You know, he's definitely, he's coming unglued for many different reasons, but it probably didn't help that he was in the same room almost all, you know, for days waiting to just leave.
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, just as an actor, I mean, the experience was pretty intense. I mean, it really, I just kind of went there. I just thought, well, what if instead of us all showing up to make a B movie or to make a little slasher movie, it's like, what if everybody just took it real seriously and just kind of like, how deep can this thing go? Because this guy's character, he's not a good guy. He's made a lot of bad decisions, and in many ways, he's there by his own hand. You know, there's you know, he could have made a number of turns along the way, but instead he made the choices that he made. Now he's in this situation, and what I thought was really neat about the story is that, yeah, I mean, there's a killer on the loose, so we're trying to figure out what's going on. But through the arc of the story, this guy does change. So in the beginning, he's bouncing off the walls. He's paranoid. He's who he's always been. But by the end of the film, and with the events that transpire, he's like a Zen monk. In many ways, he's found a measure of atonement and perhaps some redemption, and he's changed by the process, and so those kinds of themes just really affected me. You know, they're just really drew me to the project, because so much today, you know, they're checking off the typical boxes, and it's the typical storylines, and everybody's just like, oh God, there it is again. They're just getting spoon-fed the same old crap, and so much of it is crap. And I was just blessed every now and look, and sometimes that's just the job too, right? I mean, I'm blessed to make crap sometimes, because that's the job, and that's what pays the rent. And somebody thinks it's crap, maybe somebody doesn't, but for this one, like, I really liked it, and I thought this is a chance as an actor to kind of really sink your teeth into something, and to see what more you can do other than, you know, play the doctor, or play the district attorney, or play the cop, or whatever it is, you know. So it was nice to sink my teeth into something.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important to see this movie from start to finish, and maybe even like twice or three times, because there's certain scenes, because, you know, Gabe's at the mercy of two people kind of in this film, an old friend and a current kind of girlfriend that's kind of on her way out. You know, she seems like she's on the fence. She's not really sure anymore. She's also had past indiscretions or things that didn't go well for her, and she's just trying to get it back together, and she's looking at this as being, oh no, not more trouble in my life. I can't do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Here's obviously it's an unhealthy relationship between a felon and his junkie girlfriend. But again, she's trying to turn her life around. She's so conditioned to helping him out and doing what he wants, and she's done with that. I thought it was really neat, though. Jessica Staples, who plays Carly, his Gabe's girlfriend in it. Like, so often that part is written. You know, you've got the abused, girlfriend, and who's, got a drug problem and what have you, and she's being abused, this, that, and the other thing. Whereas I suggested to James, I said, look, let's stay away from that stereotype. And he says, well, what do you suggest? And I said, well, the first thing she does in the movie, I mean, she's all of those things, but the first thing that she does once she gets to him is she beats the living snot out of him. I mean, she literally, we establish her right off the bat. Yeah, she's a victim, but she'll clock you across the face. She's not weak, and she's not a pushover, and she's got some fire in her, and I thought Jessica Staples played that perfectly. I thought she did a fantastic job.
She did. I was a little worried about her caving, because there's that one scene where Gabe kind of kissing her face, and you can see that she's starting to get into it, and then all of a sudden, boom, she's like, nope, I won't have it.
Yeah, and that's just, I don't know, maybe I'm just an old Arthur Miller actor guy, but there's just such complexity. It wasn't one note. He's not just the typical wearing the wife beater guy, and she's not your typical, crack addict, single mother, parolee. I mean, there's why do these people attract each other? Why do they use each other? Because there's this twisted codependence thing happening, and yet put that kind of a dynamic, put that in a horror movie. Put that in a psycho murder movie. And so instead of, again, the victims being the high school cheerleaders or the whatever, instead you've got two felons that in many ways you won't necessarily care if they're gone or if they disappear, but we get to know them a little bit before their fates are written, and I just thought that was such a nice new twist on everything.
I definitely enjoyed it. Also, there was another scene where Gabe is kind of trying to be near the window in the bathroom, so he's kind of kind of squatting down, standing on top of the toilet basically, and he's talking to Andre, and you can see that there's this emotion that's welling up when he hears that Andre is talking to a small child in the background.
Yeah, well, here, I mean, just the staging of that was wonderful. It was Michael Dalif, our cinematographer, camera person, and producer, and editor. All these guys wore so many different hats. But the thing was, you're in one room, how do you make it interesting? And it was well, why don't we make the cell phone gets no reception except for when you're standing on the toilet in the bathroom by the little window. And And that's where this guy ends up. He's standing on a toilet trying to get reception as he's talking to Andre, who is this another bad guy, but he's the guy that's going to need a couple days before he gets him. And while they're having this conversation, Gabe hears a voice in the background, and it's a young child's, and of course he's been in jail for a long time, and he's saying, well, what is that? And Andre's explaining to him, yeah, man, I got a kid now. Things are different. I'm going to help you out, but things aren't quite, things are good. Things are better. And it's neat. And James Morris, the director, just holds on Gabe. Again, standing on top of a toilet as he really sees that the decisions and the choices that he's made in his life came with a big cost, because he can almost hear the other life he could have had. And so that was a really neat thing to do with that conversation, instead of having it be, look, man, the cops are looking for you, stay in the motel, don't be showing your face, don't go out, don't do nothing, and okay, yeah, no problem, man, you got it. Instead, there's this little child's voice in the background on the other end of the phone that just sends the whole scene in a very different direction. So now it's not about, I'll pick you up tomorrow. It's about my what have I done with my life? And it's such a simple little device, but again, it was just something that added something more to it. And just, it wasn't the one note. I didn't feel like I was doing a cop show for NBC. It was like there was something, not to knock NBC. I love you, NBC. Give me another job. It's all good. But you know what I mean? It was just, it was real people. And again, you may not like any of these people, but you can see that it's you may like them, you may hate them, but it's not easy being them. And it just added an extra little bit of color,
So where was the location for this film?
I'm trying to remember the name of the little town. We were in Utah. I want to say we were about 2 hours southeast of Salt Lake City, in one of these little truck stop town. But it was like one of those it was a back road. It was no highway near it or anything like that. It used to be like an agricultural small town stuff. And even the restaurant that we used in the film, that's literally right across the street. And so it was like this perfect location. And James, our director, again, will tell you, James Morris, that he in the script there was a trap door in one of the motel rooms, and they were going to build one, or we were going to go to somebody else's house in the garage and build a trap door and create a set. Whereas that motel, there's a trap door in that motel room, like literally. And he mentioned it to the owner, and God bless them, and we're so grateful for them, because they gave us that motel for a week. But he happened to mention, he says, yeah, well, we got this little trap door thing we're going to build somewhere else. And she's like, trap door? He said, yeah. She says, there's one right here. And she went over, lifted up the carpet, and there was a trap door.
That's amazing.
Like, what? Yeah, so it's almost like Providence. It was like, there's something else going on here. So that absolutely positively became, we have to shoot at this location. There's just no getting around it.
Oh, that worked out perfectly. So have you worked with any of the actors or with James Morris before?
I worked with Charla, who plays one of our villains, the gal at the end, and she's a wonderful. And she's local to Salt Lake, and again, that's where I met these guys. I was living in New York, and then after all the lockdowns and all this, that, and you just see the cloud coming towards New York, and I thought, I am not going to hang around for this party. So I've got some family that actually lives in the Southwest Utah, and I think Salt Lake City's like a 5-hour drive from where they are. And I was just hanging out locally in a little place called St. George at the local theater, and I met at a film festival, a little local film festival, met some filmmakers, met James, met Michael, met a bunch of people. And then that's kind of when my eyes opened that you don't need to be in LA or New York anymore. There's some serious talent everywhere. And Hollywood, having gone down the the cesspool pit that they've gone down to, or gone down with, or whatever. Anyway, it's just, that's Hollywood's done what it's done, and so, but people are still shooting. There's still independent artists and storytellers and visionaries that are still making movies. They haven't stopped. And so when I was out there in Utah, I mean, the industry, everything else had shut down. New York had shut down. Chicago, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Toronto, all the hubs just were done. And yet I think I shot 5 movies. I think I did 4 or 5 independent films and 4 or 5 stage plays in Utah during that whole thing. The sold out houses, I think I maybe put a mask on maybe twice, and both times were at Costco. And life just kind of went on, and it was, and then you even had a bit on the quiet. You had producers and directors actually coming out to shoot in Utah simply because you could. And so I just discovered that Utah in its just existing was a great place to shoot. There was tons and tons of talent out there, and having to leave New York was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It was a very, very surreal, strange thing.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. So going back to being in the room while you were filming in the room, did it have any effects on you personally?
Oh, look, it's weird. I'm not Daniel Day-Lewis, right? I mean, I'm not a method guy, but you do, sometimes you'll find a part where you can kind of do a deep dive, because there's just so much to explore, and you also get a chance to. I mean, you know, I'm kind of a bread and butter blue collar actor. You know, you're brought in to support the leads. You don't often get to carry an entire film. You're there to support the guy or the gal that has been brought in to anchor the entire film. And so when you get an opportunity, stakes are a little higher and there's more responsibility. And if it's a good part, you actually really get to explore it. And I did. And I will say that once we finished, even though it was six days, James and Michael were so receptive, and the door was always open, that again, they let me in at the script stage. We were writing together, and so that intensity and that dedication, that obsession in some ways, kept going, and it went throughout the edit, and because there were multiple edits, and notes again, and then another edit, and then notes again, and then notes again, and trying to hone it and see it and all that kind of stuff. So it was something that was hard to shake, to be perfectly honest, because I found that when I finally did get another audition for the assistant district attorney or for the whatever, like I was bouncing off the walls, and it was like, whoa, what are you doing? You're the district attorney is not on crack, so you just take a breath. You know what I mean? Like, just slow down, man. Because it really did get under my skin, and it took some time to shake it. I'll be perfectly honest. It really, really did. I mean, there were also some things going on in my life at the time, coincidentally or otherwise, and so maybe sometimes you use the part. You'll use it to exercise some demons or some ghosts that you have, and the timing is right, and you're able to kind of do both. You're able to show up as an actor and play a part, but also just on a personal level, just as a human being, you're able to I don't know, dance with some of your demons, and maybe put a harness or two on a few of them. So it was really, really intense, and it did. It took a while to shake. It did, and it's not often I'm lucky enough for that to happen. Because sometimes you show up, you do a couple of days, you hit your piece of tape, you say your lines, you go to the craft service table, and then they say, that's a wrap, thanks for showing up, and that's the end of that. Whereas this, I really did get to live it a bit, and it did. It got in there, got into my blood.
So, having talked about the industry a little bit, what made you want to become an actor?
makes us want to become anything. I don't think I ever. At first, you think you want to be something, and I think it's decades later that you realize that you really didn't have a choice. I think that ultimately what you do, well, for many of us, if you're lucky or unlucky, what you do isn't what you wanted to do. It's you didn't have any choice. You really didn't. And perhaps my success isn't because I'm particularly good at anything. It's because I'm so horrible at everything else. And that I was able, I look, on my days off, I show up to set. And when I'm not working, everything that I do in my life is, how do I get back there? And then when I get there, how do I stay there longer? How can I, it's the stuff you live and breathe and eat. And, yeah, like I said, I don't think my success is attributed to any particular ability to do it. I think it's more about my inability to do anything else. It's the only thing that it's just oxygen for me. And if I don't have it on one level or another, it's a dark room.
Okay, so it sounds like you're very passionate about it.
Well, just look what you do. Imagine, take the microphone away from you. Take that laptop you're sitting in front of away from you. It's what are you going to do?
Exactly.
You're going to go and sell insurance and check off days of the calendar while you got your friggin' horoscope up there?
That's so
and
funny.
Hang out at the coffee machine? You can't do it. You'll kill yourself.
I was doing insurance when I started my show.
You totally know what I'm saying. And it's terrifying. Think about when you said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And your friends and people, you're going to do what? Christy, you're going to what?
Yeah.
I'm going to, hey, well, okay, good luck to you. She's doing this thing, whatever. It does be supportive. It's terrifying. It takes so much balls. It takes so much courage, because you're literally closing your eyes and you're falling backwards into an abyss, and you're just going to have the faith that something's going to catch you, or that you're not going to fall too far, or that it's just going to be okay. It is a massive leap of faith, and it costs. It does cost, because the security's not there. But also the great adventure of your life now is as is mine. Also is that you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, and it's a blessing and a curse. So yeah, you're not asking about their policies up because the roof is hit 15 years. You're now engaging in ideas and conversation and other people's lives and different outlooks, and it's why you're put here. It's pretty awesome, and I appreciate your time, because I feel a kindred spirit.
Oh, well, thank you. And I completely relate to that statement for sure. So with, like, you said there was something else you had been working on since the movie. Are you currently working on something now?
Well, look, it's interesting. Well, two things. While I was doing He Never Left, which again we made for two bottle caps and a Q-tip, I was also working with Kevin Costner on Horizon, which was $100 million epic.
Right.
And as good as it is, as awesome as it is, it didn't do as well as many had hoped. And of course, and I was contracted, or I am contracted, to do all four. So we shot 1 and 2. 1 came out and didn't do well. 2 is finished, but they've withheld it. Right now they're hanging on to it. We're supposed to shoot 3 and 4, but I'm just waiting to hear, hoping, crossing my fingers that still happens. So that's still kind of in the mix. But also I ended up working on a miniseries called the Pendragon Cycle. And it's kind of based on the Pendragon Cycle books, which is a King Arthur themed, legendary series of books. Only it follows Merlin, and it follows Merlin from the time he was a child. So it's essentially Merlin's story, and it's more of the classic telling of the King Arthur legend. And it's and I ended up doing that with the folks over at the Daily Wire, and that was a decision to make, because the Daily Wire is known as a quote unquote right-wing website, talking heads, Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, all those kinds of guys over there. But here was this property, this Pendragon cycle, and Hollywood wouldn't touch it. It just wouldn't touch it. It was like a bar of gold sitting on the sidewalk, and it was there for anybody to take. And it was Jeremy Boring and Dallas Sawyer over at the Daily Wire that picked it up. And again, it's a story about integrity and character and atonement and redemption and grace and honor and just it's battling for your very soul and the future. And there's a lot to it. And in Hollywood, that's a bit verboten now. That's not something that they're interested in. So instead of sitting around and complaining about it, the guys over the Daily Wire said, well, we're going to acquire this property and we're going to make it. And I had met Jeremy Boring via Gary Sinise when we were doing some stuff for the troops, some guys with PTSD, guys and gals, and trying to help those folks out. And so when Pendragon came around, the part of Lord Vortigern came up, and we had a conversation saying, I know I'm flying out to Budapest to shoot it. And it was incredible, because when I got there, someone I'd worked with many times in the past, and it's always, what a blessing, but I got to work with Jeff Dawn, and Jeff won the Academy Award for Best Makeup on Terminator. And we've worked a couple of times on a couple of different things, and Jeff and I both think the same. Like, I really love acting. And I'm the kind of actor that shows up and I'm like, hey, I've got an idea. We could do this and we could do that, because I'm a theater guy. And so often makeup people, they got the sponge and they put it on your face, and they don't want to be hearing your ideas, because it's not a collaborative thing for them, right? Whereas Jeff's like, all right, where are we going with this? And again, we're doing this time period thing. And I said, well, let me guess. Everybody in this show is probably wanting to look like Viggo Mortensen, right? And as a joke. And he said, well, yeah, sort of, kind of, looking good and chiseled and hunky. And I said, let's make him sick. Make him a sickly king. Make this guy just frail and old and arthritic and rheumatism and cold, dank, not good. And he says, what do you think? I said, let's shave my head. Let's shave him. Let's just make him look like he's in chemo. And so that's what we did. We ended up aging me by, oh my God, 30 years. And I got to just completely disappear. And the miracle, of course, working with Jeff Dawn is he aged me 30 years, and it took about 30 minutes. And so again, I got to just completely disappear, and the role of Lord Vortigern on the Pendragon cycle, and that's coming up this spring. So again, I've just been so blessed with just being able to work with Kevin on Horizon and all those incredible actors, and to work with on Pendragon, which is coming out in the spring. And then of course here we're talking about He Never Left, which was this little movie that we made for 2 coming years, So I've been blessed. It's been a great year. It really has.
Sounds like it. So going back, you have been in many TV shows and films. How far, what was your first role?
My first role was roast beef and mustard. No. My first role. Well, it's weird, because it's a weird question, because the first time you ever got paid for something.
I want to know if it was a commercial. Was it whatever it was.
Well, I remember. I'll share 2 quick little anecdotes. My first paid gig was on a movie of the week. I think it was called The Trouble with Mary, And it was back when they were doing what they called the Freak of the Week. And for those of you who don't remember that far back or weren't born then, a movie of the week was an MOW, a movie of the week, and they would feature some whatever the zeitgeist was. It could have been drug addiction, it could have been, stay away from PCP. This one happened to be eating disorders, when eating disorders were all the rage. And so this movie that we called The Trouble with Nancy, and it was with William Devane and Jill Clayburgh. And I was, again, super familiar with, those were big movie stars, man, like when I was growing up, and I just felt like, it was like, oh my God, it was like, acting with the Pope and Mother Teresa. Like, I mean, I was so tongue-tied, I was nervous as hell, but that was my first ever where I auditioned and I got the gig. But the first time I think it ever really hit me, I'm like, wait a second, what is this? Because I've watched movies since birth, because I grew up at a time when there was nothing on television, so they just reran all the old black and whites that my father grew up with. So by the time I was 10, I'd memorized everything, Danny Kaye, James Cagney, all the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby movies, Martin and Lewis, I mean, Abbott and Costello. I mean, I've been absorbed on a loop for a decade. But I remember the first time we went to see a play, and it wasn't the kind of, musical, Swan Lake or the Nutcracker where they bust a bunch of kids and you're sitting there picking your nose thinking, what the hell is this ballet crap? It was a drama, and it was A View from the Bridge, and it was at the Lee Strasberg Theater. I think it was on Melrose. I must have been, 10 years old. And I remember going in there, and it's a drama about a family in New York, and at the end, someone dies. There's a death, and I remember the mother. The actress who played the mother was absolutely, in the scene, was just unbelievably distraught. I mean, she was. It was real, man. I was like blown away. Then the play ends, and I remember for the curtain call, everybody comes out, and they take their bows, and she couldn't shake it. She was still really trying not to bawl. She was so emotionally taken. And I'm sitting in the audience watching this, and I was like, what the hell is that? Like, what is that? I was young enough to know, smart enough to know the show's over, but she can't let it go. There's something, and it was like watching a 3D movie, and you could feel it. Like it was happening. It was like you were with a point of view. I felt like a fly on the wall of a family. I didn't belong in this house. I was secretly watching these events unfold, and it just burned into my cellular membrane. And I wanted to know, what is that? Like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And it wasn't until, I guess maybe when I was 20 and lost and terrible as a student, and I dropped out of high school. I went to secondary high school for troubled kids. And got into my first fist fight of my entire life was the first time I ever went to one of those schools, and I quit that crap. I was just like, and the reason I got into the fight was because another student was disrespecting the teacher, and I was just a mess. But it was when somebody suggested that I audition for a play that it blew my world apart. Because in many ways it was something that you could just, I really loved, but I could see this is not something you can perfect. It's just not, because if you're any good at it, you shouldn't have any idea what you're doing. I mean, you prepare, but when you go, you're now in the race, and you're now, or it's a basketball game. You've already practiced how to dribble and shoot, but now it's about strategy, it's energy you're feeling, who's coming up behind you, and I know my buddy's there, boom, and you slip them the ball, and it transcends the skills that put you there. And if you try and think about the skills, you're not playing the game. And I realized, and I was bit, I was absolutely hooked, and I thought, this is dangerous, really dangerous, because I thought either you better bury this feeling way down deep, because who the hell wants to become an actor? So you better bury this deep, or you're going to spend the rest of your life chasing it. And I thought, well, if I buried it, it's just going to pop back up again some point in time. It'll just poison me. So I just kind of resigned myself. This is my lot in life. This is what I'm going to do. And come hell or high water, high road, low road, money, no money. This is who you are versus what you're going to do. And I just went with that.
Well, I've noticed, I was going to ask, is there a role that's kind of closest that you've ever done that's kind of closest to your personality? But I could kind of see if you kind of read ahead and you can have a chance to read something and decide whether you want to do it or not, maybe you stay away from things that are closest to your personality. So how do you go about that?
Well, it's kind of weird. I mean, the way I see it, I'm with me every day. I don't need any more of me. I put on wigs and I got contact lenses. And I'll change the way I look, change the way I look, mustache, clean shaven. I'll try and do everything I can not to look like me, because I already know me. I'm bored by me. And I never got into this business to meet girls. I never got into it to get a nice table at the restaurant. I don't want anybody to. It's nice to be acknowledged for what you do, but I don't want anybody recognizing me because, hey, you're on that show, and all of a sudden you're important. And it's like, no, I'm just me, But so I really love the craft. I love being able to tell a story. So I can completely disappear entirely. The happier I am. I spend enough time with me. It's way more fun to put on the clown suit and let it kind of use you. You kind of become the muse of something else, and to just allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
And there's a buzz to it. There really is. It's great because, again, on my best day, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as far as your look, it's definitely across the board. You've had every different look imaginable. And, I think that kind of goes back to, some of those actors that have, can kind of do different characters and they go way outside of, who they actually are. People who, every time you see them, they look completely different or they have a completely different persona.
I'll tell you, it's really hard though, and I mean that. It's really hard because every time in a career, you want to get typecast. You want to be known as you, because you look a certain way, or I want that type. But if I never show up looking the same way, so I have to start from zero every single time I audition, because nobody has any idea what they're going to get. I mean, I remember when I was living in Vancouver and auditioning, and you get the part of the dentist or whatever the hell it was, or the lawyer, and you'd show up to the audition and you're wearing your suit, and everybody else is wearing the same suit they were wearing last week at the last audition ad infinitum. So, and I realized I don't want to just play the lawyer. So I would burn auditions. I would literally go to not get the job. And what I would do is I would show up for the lawyer, and I'd show up shirtless, covered in tattoos, and leather, in a leather bracelet with a wig that went down to my waist, put some scars on my forehead, and then play the lawyer. Now, there's no way in hell I was ever going to get that audition, but next time they're going to bring me in for the lawyer or the Hell's Angel. So it took years of doing this to get the casting directors to see me in a different light. Otherwise, I was the guy that kind of looked like, a bit like Edward Norton in between Pauly Shore, and where he's going to show up and play that guy. And so I'd shave my head. I'd wear a mohawk. I'd shave it off entirely. I'd do anything to just try and change the palette so they weren't looking at me as the one thing, which would open up more opportunities, more doors for me to play different parts, which gave me more work, or at least more opportunities. But it's hard to ascend. There's very few Gary Oldmans in the world, and even Gary now isn't necessarily doing the work that he did earlier because it's just not in vogue. You know, you're playing the superhero now. They want you to look that way. They want a recognizable face that they can follow from movie to movie to movie, and that's your brand. And I don't have one. I've never had one, and it's made artistically it's been incredibly rewarding, but financially and just in terms of a career, it's a very difficult thing to do because you're never the same guy.
Right. Have you ever encountered anything odd while you're on set? Like whether it's like a malfunction of some sort or something that was just, you know, really hilarious. One of the more memorable, I'm sure things go awry.
Oh God. Well, yeah, no, if anything, that's my first thought. You know, people think, hey, Hollywood and film sets, and it's this wonderful, creative, safe place. It's not. I've been on numerous sets, certainly more than 2, 3, where someone's lost their life, and it's bad. It's people are working incredibly long hours. You've got things moving at velocity. There's water, there's electricity, there's hydraulics, there's just human error. There's you know, how many pounds per pressure are we putting on this particular bit? We're going to blow up a boat, you know, and it's a quarter mile away, but nobody foresaw that the battery in the boat was going to go airborne and land on somebody by the crew. So unfortunately, those are the first things that come to mind. But I will say, on a positive note, I remember working on Falling Skies, which was a Steven Spielberg, 5 years at TNT, and it was a post-apocalyptic show. And, you know, the aliens had come down. It was basically the resistance against the Nazis, but the Nazis had come from outer space and were taking over, and the human beings needed to fight back. But because it was Spielberg, I remember, like, the first season, the first couple episodes, you'd show up to work, and your office was a freeway in Toronto, and they'd locked down 2-3 miles of freeway, and on that freeway, on the overpass or whatever you're looking at, were fires and hundreds of people and tents and cooking stoves and encampments and horses and animals, and it was like, and it wasn't digital. This isn't CGI. You're, you know, in army trucks, you know, lined up for a half mile. You know, these big giant diesel green canvassed army trucks, and you're staring at this spectacle, and you're thinking, my God. I mean, it's just this is my job. And it's moments like that. It transcends even. It's hard to get your head around, because now you're not. Hey, me, I'm an actor on a show. You're staring at the work of production designers and set decorators, and they're geniuses. And your mind's expanded because you realize that this art form so transcends you. And if anything, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. You've got actors are so often so quick to take the credit for other departments. Those other departments exist to make you look good, and to think that was you that pulled off that performance, and you're getting all the reviews and everybody's raving about you. No, it's a team effort, and 9 times out of 10, the people that you're surrounded by are 100 times more talented than you'll ever be, and nobody knows their name. But when you get out there and you realize you're in that kind of company, it's humbling.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Wow. So I have like one last question. This is more like music related. What do you listen to for motivation, or what are you currently listening to? And it does not have to be metal. Even us, people who listen to metal all the time still listen to lots of other music. So
no, I'll tell you this. I'm going to tie two little worlds together. I love funky music. I love James Brown, funk, soul, anything that's funky. I am all over it. I love it. And to bring that into the metal world, Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin is one of the funkiest songs ever written. That is dripping in black soul funk, and that's why that song is as good and still holds up, and still holds up. My God, blows away everything else. Forever, they'll be trying to hold a candle to that song, and it's because it's just got that thing. That's funk. Mm-hmm. That is soul music. That is black American soul blues music. And so when I hear that, I don't care if it's Norwegian death metal, or if it's disco, or if it's jazz, if it doesn't, whatever it is, if it's got that funkiness in there, it goes from, because good metal, I think good music, like you got the jazz heads, the music is that kind of music, the technical, intricate technique alone, how fast can you move, that's very cerebral. But you've got to move, you got to take that skill, you got to take that technique, and you got to bring it down below the neck. You mix it into the heart a little bit, and then you push it down and below the belt, because it's down there between the legs. That's where you feel it. That's where you feel this music. Metallica, to me, is a funk band. They're just, they're hitting it hard, but they never lose the groove. It's not speed for the sake of speed. It's speed because that's what the groove wants. And so I would say anybody listens to metal, you may notice that, or hopefully you that may enlighten your musicology a little bit, because sometimes the reason you like a heavy metal song so much is because it's coming off a little bit like Al Green, and you don't even know it, because it's got some Aretha in there, because Joe Satriani or whoever you're listening to, they grew up listening to their mother's Aretha Franklin records, and that's why that metal is so good. Absolutely.
We all listened to our parents' music at one point, or another. And one of my favorite bands of all time is Led Zeppelin because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You bet.
All right. So you can be found on Instagram, but you're basically promoting, other people's music and what you're doing with film and TV shows.
Yeah, so much of my Instagram on a good day is paying homage or bring a spotlight to somebody that I don't even know. Like I said, I was in Barcelona recently, and I've got my saxophone, and I go in between gigs, I'll go and play in front of some cathedral or a fountain somewhere in Italy and just put out my hat, and nobody knows me, and it's great. And this particular journey has landed me in Barcelona, so I've been playing with tons of incredible musicians, and they don't even speak English, and sometimes they're multiple languages, but we all speak music. So on stage, I'll pull out my damn phone and I'll just start shooting footage, because the bass player's going off on a wicked solo, or the guitar player, and I'll cut stuff together and I'll throw it into iMovie, and then I'll send it to them. I'll find out who they are on Instagram, and I'll tag them. And I don't even know them, but it's just good to be in great company. And I know that it's not often while they're playing, nobody's thinking, hey, I'll pull out my phone, shoot something artistic or something cool, and then send it to them. And it's such a wonderful thing to receive. So I like doing that for people that don't even know, because I've been so blessed myself.
Yeah, so I heard that, your last set was in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken, and then you just decided to travel, after that.
Yeah, I was finishing up. I'm shooting a little horror film called Grom 2. Again, Rob York, director out of American Fork, Utah. And we shot this little monster movie in Ireland, and now I'm in Ireland, and we shot for 5 days, and then everybody went back, and I'm like, what? I just got over my jet lag. I'm not going back. So I decided to stay, and I did met up with some great guys, just some wonderful musicians, and again, just got to spend some time with them in Dublin, and we did some gigs, and then the rain and the darkness got to be a bit too much, and I literally Googled Funk Soul Jam Europe. And I think Stockholm came up, Berlin came up, and Barcelona. And I thought, well, Barcelona's got the sun, so I ended up in Barcelona on a open funk jam Google search. So that's how I ended up in Spain.
That's great. That's a great way to, kind of figure out what your next move is.
My wife and 5 kids aren't particularly happy about it. No, I'm kidding. I'm not married, and I don't have kids, for anybody thinking that I'm a deadbeat dad.
I was going to say, oh my goodness. You're like, look, I'm out of here, kids. For Christmas, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Your dad's going to go play in the town square out in front of a laundromat in Berlin. See you later.
Papa was a Rolling Stone.
There you go.
Oh, that was so funny. Okay, so I could probably talk to you for another hour, but I think I've put you through it. So thank you so much for visiting us at Castle Blakk Radio, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Hopefully you'll get some good band playing tonight.
No, thank you, and thank you everybody at Castle Blakk. I want you to thank. You know what? I don't know, just thank your listeners, because they've been taking the ride with you for as long as you've been doing it, and it's just I don't know. I just feel like I'm in good company. So I'm glad that you're out there. I feel that I'm able to do. You validate what I do, and because I know I'm not the only one doing it, and I don't feel as alone, because there's other people out there that are also thinking, hey, I can do something, and I'm going to do this, and damn it, I'm just gonna do it, and let's see what happens. And it takes courage, and it just kind of puts some wind in my sails to keep on keeping them.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much again, and good luck with everything that you're working on. It sounds exciting, and I can't wait to see it.
I appreciate that so much. I really do. Thanks for taking the time today, and for watching the film, and and it's just, look, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.